Once upon a time, in the village of Uli, lived the most beautiful maiden you would ever meet. She was so beautiful that the villagers would often sit and make momentary bets on how much her dowry would cost to marry the beautiful Ijeoma. The young maidens wanted to be her, and the young men were ready to do anything to marry her. Ijeoma, on the other hand, was fully aware of the madness her beauty was causing in the village, and she loved every bit of it. Those were the moments her mother Nneka had prepared her for her entire life. My God, her mother would call her when she was younger. You will marry a wealthy husband who will bring us all the wealth your late father could not offer us, she would tell her as she braided her hair. And Ijeoma would take those words into her heart every time she heard them. And as time went on, she began to believe that was her only purpose in life. Nneka had 3 children for her late husband, 2 girls and 1 boy. But Ijeoma was her favorite for obvious reasons. Ijeoma's siblings Chidera and Ebere were always treated like second-class citizens in their home. Their entire life's mission was to make Ijeoma happy. When she was sad, they had to sing or dance to make her smile. Whatever they ate at home was dependent on what Ijeoma was craving. They referred to her as Queen instead of her name. Their mother insisted that it would remind Ijeoma that she belongs to royalty or wealth, and worst of all, Nneka would send Chidera and Ebere to some villagers to work, and their wages was used to take care of Ijeoma. She would encourage them as she took their money, saying, "Don't worry, when your sister brings that man that we're all waiting for, all our lives would change for the best." Despite all these treatments, Chidera and Ebere did not hate their little sister. Even though their mother would clearly favor Ijeoma, they stayed close to her because they remembered their happy times together as kids and still saw her as their sister, not just the queen their mother wanted her to be. They knew Ijeoma was also stuck in their mother's plans, so they could not be angry at her. Their strong bonds as siblings helped them stick together. When it was finally time for Ijeoma to be married, Nneka became even more determined to find the right suitor. She was especially harsh when the wrong type of men came to her compound to seek Ijeoma's hand in marriage. "Are you not the porter who has a shop close to the border?" Nneka asked one suitor who came for Ijeoma. The man confidently nodded, pleased that Nneka recognized him. But then she burst into mocking laughter. "I know you can make clay pots for cooking, but I'm looking for someone who can continuously afford to buy foodstuffs to cook inside the pots. Oh yeah, leave my compound, sir," she shouted angrily. Some others would come, and she would angrily pour a huge drum of water over them or splash paint on their clothes. And when she was feeling extremely wicked, she would go ahead to cook a meal for the suitor. Then she would add a lot of pepper into the meal, and when they requested for water, she would laugh and ask, "So after giving you a free food, you want me to give you free water too? Okay?" Yeah? The villagers had mixed feelings about Nneka's actions. Some market sellers would joke severally about the situation. "I can always count on Nneka to buy these paints for Ijeoma's unfortunate suitors, even though no one else does." And they would all laugh. Others would say, "Who does she think she is? Is she the only one with a beautiful daughter? In fact, we are not interested anymore." But despite their words, when Ijeoma took her usual evening stroll, the young men were captivated by her beauty all over again, easily forgiving her mother's behavior. After all, who wouldn't? Ijeoma was the epitome of beauty in the village of Uli. Her skin shimmered like polished ebony, smooth and radiant under the sun. Her big, bright eyes sparkled like the clearest star. Her high cheekbones and full lips were perfectly sculpted. Ijeoma's long flowing hair was decorated with shiny beads, gold threads that caught the lights when she smiled. Her whole face lit up, making everyone who saw her feel happy and enchanted. And she carried herself with a natural grace that made her stand out everywhere she went. One day, the time finally came for Nneka to receive the reward for her long-awaited plans. There was an extremely wealthy merchant called Kelechi who came into Uli to do business with the king. Kelechi was the richest man in the entire East, and to honor him, the king held an exclusive banquet for him. And in the evening, King Anayo took him on a walk to see his kingdom, and walking behind them were some warriors and musicians who sang loud praises of the king and Kelechi as they walked. At the same time, Ijeoma and her mother decided to go on evening stroll together. From a distance, praises from the musicians reached Nneka's ear, and she could not help but wonder how Kelechi looked. Everyone from the east knew about him, but she had never seen him as he was not from her village. Ijeoma, can you hear what they are saying about that man? Asked her daughter in excitement. Those are the type of suitors I want for you. But Mama, a man like that will already have so many wives, and someone like that is not fit for me, she answered her mother. Nneka smiled at her daughter in confidence. My God, she held her. I am happy you know who you are, and I am not insinuating that he is your husband. I was only referring to his wishes. Anyways, let us hurry so we can catch a glimpse of this great man. Eventually, they got close to the king and his guests. So Nneka and her daughter greeted politely. And just as they were about to continue walking, Kelechi called out to Ijeoma. Excuse me, young maiden, he said to her. Kelechi and the king exchanged glances to acknowledge her beauty. Are you looking for a new wife? The king asked Kelechi, but he laughed gently and said, Since my wife passed away, I have not been interested in any other woman, but I believe this beautiful maiden would be a wonderful fit for my only child, Chike. Nneka was very excited. If anyone had told her that her gold would be chosen by Kelechi to marry his son, she would have never believed. All her hard work has finally paid off. Afterwards, Kelechi informed Nneka that he would come back with his son and kinsmen to officially make their intention known. And so the agreement was made in the presence of the king Anayo. News rapidly spread around the village. Many of the villagers became friendly to Nneka. They wanted to be friends with the in-law of the wealthy Kelechi. Nneka, on the other hand, spared no expense. She sourced for funds from her other children, who were now married. When that was not enough, she borrowed from people, promising to pay back. She knew that once her daughter was married into Kelechi's family, her financial worries would be over. 2 weeks later, as promised, Kelechi came with his kinsmen. But when they all sat down, Nneka noticed that the men he had come with were all the same age as Kelechi. So she asked, Nda Kelechi, you said you will be coming with your son, but I have not seen him. Or is he on his way? Kelechi smiled and responded, Apologies, my in-law. You know my son Chike is the heir to all my wealth. He had to attend to urgent business matters in a distant village, but he trusts my decisions. Nneka laughed out loud and said, Of course, I understand. After all, he will be there for the wedding. We can do without him today. But Chidera, Ijeoma's brother, was not satisfied with the answer. But elder, should Chike not see his bride before he paid the dowry today? He asked, and immediately Nneka pinched him to shut up. My son, Kelechi answered, nobody would see Ijoma and refused her as their bride, he said, and everybody laughed in agreement. And immediately the dowry payment commenced. Soon after that, a date was chosen for their wedding and preparation were in full gear. Nneka put her daughter through several expensive beauty treatments, and she spared no expense in the wedding preparation. It just had to be grand because the beauty from Uli was getting married to the great Chike. In the midst of all this preparation, Ijoma would quietly wonder about her groom and what he looks like. Yes, she was happy she would be married into riches, like her mother desired, but secretly, she also wanted to love and to be loved by her future husband. Each passing day leading to the wedding, her anticipation grew. When the day finally came, she got dressed in the most beautiful attire, and she was adored with the most royal beads. Several prestigious guests invited by Kelechi flocked Nneka's compound, including King Anayo. The visitors brought many gifts, and the villagers watched in admiration each time someone influential arrives. But all that did not concern Ijoma so much. Several times, she would peek through the window of the room she was waited in, hoping to see when Mazi Kelechi and his son would arrive. After what seems like eternity to Ijoma, Chike finally arrived with his father and several other kingsmen. The musicians sang praises of him and his father as they walked into the ceremony. Ijoma ran to the window to catch a glimpse of him, and when she did, she was pleasantly pleased. Chike was a good-looking man, well-built with a charming smile. But despite his looks, Ijoma could not help but wonder why he was so plainly dressed. For goodness sakes, he was the groom. But she overlooked it and said to herself, I always heard that wealthy people do not like to be overdressed. The wedding ceremony eventually began, and Ijoma was ushered out to meet her husband. The drum played beautifully, blending with the melodious tune from the African flutes, and Ijoma danced elegantly, swaying her hips to the tune of the music. Afterwards, she handed the cup filled with wine to Chike, as tradition demanded, to signify that it was her husband. The whole crowd shared in excitement. But to Chike and Ijoma, the world was silent, and it was only them that existed as their eyes met. It was clearly that they were attracted to each other. One would believe that they have been in love for many years. Indeed, Kelechi perfectly matched his son to a woman he knew he would like. The marriage ceremony was over, and the Chike and his bride made their way home. However, Ijoma rode in a separate carriage, while Chike rode together with Kelechi, because they had urgent matters to address. When they finally arrived at Kelechi's home, Ijoma was stunned. His home was magnificent, nothing like she had seen before. Chike went to his bride and said, My wife, welcome home. The maids will usher you to our quarters. Give me an hour to finish my conversation with my father. He will be traveling tomorrow, and this is the only chance I have. He told her, and Ijoma blushed. She loved the way her husband spoke. As instructed, the maid ushered her to her quarters. But when Ijoma entered, she was alarmed. The quarters were very plain. Are we in the right place? She asked the maid. Yes, this is Master Chike's quarters, the maid answered. Ijoma asked her to leave, but she was still in shock. She stepped outside the quarters to ensure she was still in Elder Kelechi's compound. Chike's quarters and the compound were like two different worlds. Well, I guess this place was lacking a woman's touch. Now that I am here, I will beautify it to my standards, she said to herself. Ijoma decided to start opening the gifts she received from her wedding while she waited for Chike. There's a lot of gifts, and she could not wait to see what each contained. Slowly, she unwrapped them, revealing pots, expensive material, and many more things. But she soon got sleepy. In a matter of time, she lay beside the huge pile of gifts and slept off. "Wake up," Ijoma heard someone say in her sleep. Ijoma rubbed her eyes and saw Chike in front of her. She did not realize he had slept off. "My husband, I was waiting for you, so I decided to open the gift while I waited," she said as she yawned. But Chike was not pleased. "We should have discussed this before you began. Do you not know that we can give out these items to others when we are invited for occasions? That way we will save money," he said, alarmed. Ijoma was confused at his answer, but she decided to not ask any more questions. "I'm sorry, I was not aware," she answered him. Chike felt he might have been too harsh, so he apologized. Then he sat next to her and said, "You made such a beautiful bride. You are a beautiful woman." He complimented and she smiled back at him. "Thank you," she responded. Then she looked at him and said, "You know, if I had met you on the road, judging from your attire, I wouldn't have known today was your wedding." Chike laughed. "I'm a very simple man. Why do I have to spend all that money on an occasion when I can simply wear one of my re-existing clothes?" he responded. You mean you did not get new clothes for the wedding?" Ijoma asked in shock, and he nodded proudly and said, "I've had this attire for 3 years, and it has served me well. I believed money should be kept for an important purposes. Did you see the amount of food items my father brought to pay your dowry? I told him we cannot be wasting money like that. And when he insisted, I refused to go with him. He also offered to get me a new traditional attire for today. But I stood my ground as always and put on the attire I have now. I cannot be part of such wasteful lifestyle." Ijoma's heart began to beat in fear. What had she gotten herself into? Keneshi told her mother that Chike was on a trip, which was why he was not present at the dowry payment. "I'm hungry," she said. Finally, she's finding her words. "Can I please get some corn and pear to eat?" she asked. "No, pear is almost out of season, so anyone you find now will be overpriced. I will tell the maids to prepare yam for you," Chike said, and immediately he got up and walked away. Ijoma began to panic, wondering how she was going to adjust to this place. All her life, she ate whatever she wanted, dressed beautifully, waited for a wealthy man to marry her. But now, she did not need a prophet to tell her that although she was surrounded with riches and wealth, she did not have access to it because her husband was extremely stingy. Several days passed, and each day revealed new sides of Chike. Ijoma soon discovered that her husband owned only 8 pieces of clothing, which he wore in a strict rotation. Their quarters were plain, because Chike believed that decorations were a waste of money. "Are the decorations going to talk to me when I'm bored?" he would say whenever Ijoma asked him about it. Sometimes she found his reasoning so ridiculous that she wanted to laugh. But realizing how much he had affected her, the laughter would turn into tears. She had left most of her clothing in Uli, hoping that her husband would buy her luxurious new outfits. Chike's stingy nature quickly began to place huge strain on their marriage. "I do not understand why you need all these things," Chike would complain. Even when she asked for basic necessities. "We need to save money," he would say. "What are we even saving for? Chike, look around. You can see we have enough money Let's enjoy ourselves a little. Ijoma would argue. Speak for yourself. I am enjoying my life just fine, he would say with laugh. Ijoma became frustrated and alone. Her days were filled with constant back and forth between herself and Chike, and she had no one to confide in. Her father-in-law, Kelechi, had left on a long trip soon after their wedding, as if he had known what was coming and wanted to avoid it. Desperate for companionship, Ijoma began to seek solace in Amaka, an older maid who worked in Kelechi's household. Through her conversations with Amaka, Ijoma learned more about Chike's past. Kelechi only met his son 2 years ago. Amaka revealed, "My master, Kelechi and Chike's mother were young lovers. When she got pregnant, she ran away because Kelechi's parents threatened her. She was a daughter of a poor farmer." Amaka explained that no one knew why Chike was the way he was, but Kelechi let him be because he was overjoyed to have a child. His wife had never borne him a child before she passed away. So when Chike showed up, Kelechi celebrated with a feast. Amaka also advised Ijoma to learn bead making. "I can take them to the market and sell for you. At least you can use the money to buy something for yourself," she suggested to Ijoma. Ijoma took Amaka's advice to her heart and began learning bead making urgently, as she needed to earn some money for herself. Meanwhile, back in Uli, Nneka was growing increasingly restless. It had been 3 months since the wedding, and she had expected to be swimming in wealth by now. The people she had borrowed money from were starting to demand repayment. In desperation, she sent a message to her daughter, asking why she had been left to suffer. Nneka was confident that the messenger would return with many bags of cowries, so she invited all her creditors to gather at her house. The same evening, the messenger would return, but she was in for a shock. Instead of bringing back wealth, the messenger returned with sad news from Ijoma. Ijoma narrated to him how pitiful her life was as a married woman. To make matters worse, she even went so far as to ask her mother for a loan if she had any money to spare. Nneka nearly fainted. When she heard the news, in a panic, she tried to flee, but someone noticed her and alerted the others, who quickly chased her down. And when they caught up with her, she pleaded desperately, "Please, have mercy on me. I'm an old woman," she cried. "Were you young when you borrowed the money from us?" One of them fired back at her, but she continued to beg for more time. And eventually, they agreed to give her a little longer. Nneka immediately turned to her other children for help, sharing with them what Ijoma was going through. Chidera, her eldest son, spoke up angrily. "Mama, I knew something was wrong, but you were only interested in the money. Well, we can't keep paying for your mistakes. We will give you what we can, and then we will send some money to Ijoma. We have our own families now. If we pay off such a huge debt, our own families will suffer," Chidera said, speaking on behalf of his sister Ebere. And she added, "We have sacrificed enough over the years to support your plans, and we can't do it anymore." Realizing she had no other choice, Nneka sold her only plot of land to pay off the debt. She also knew she had to find a way to support herself, so she decided to sell fruits in the market. However, when she went to sell, the villagers began to mock her. How can Kelechi's in-law be selling fruits in the markets? They asked among themselves. Some of the men she had once looked down on would deliberately buy from her, only to laugh in her face. Nneka felt humiliated, but she knew this was her fate now. Moving forward, she would live on the profit from her fruit business and whatever income her children sent to her. As time passed, Ijeoma mastered the art of bead making and was finally ready to sell her creations. But before doing so, she decided to do something unexpected. She gifted the first piece to her husband. "I thought this would look good with that white attire you always wear on Sundays," she said. Chike carefully examined the beads, his eyes narrowing as he took them in. "This is well crafted," he said slowly, holding the bead up to the light. "But why would you spend your time on something like this? Bead making won't bring us wealth." Ijeoma prepared for his usual frugality, and she replied gently, "It's not about wealth, my husband. I made this for you because I cared for you. I knew you don't like spend money on things that are not necessary. But this is a small gift from me to show my appreciation for you." Chike was silent for a moment, clearly taken aback by her sincerity. Finally, he nodded, and to Ijeoma's surprise, put the beads round his neck. "Thank you," he said quietly, almost awkwardly, as if he was not expressing gratitude. Ijeoma smiled, feeling a small victory in her heart. She knew this was just a tiny step, but it was a step nonetheless. Days turned into weeks, and Ijeoma continued to make her sell beads, slowly accumulating enough money to buy small things that brought her joy, like a new piece of clothes. And occasionally, she would give Chike one item or the other. She noticed that he had begun to open up to her gradually. For example, when he returned from work, he would tell her all that happened. He would even ask her to visit him at work so they could spend more time together. One day, when they sat under the tree, eating a meal, Ijeoma asked Chike a question at the risk of spoiling his mood. "Chike, why are you so focused on saving money? It's good to save, but yours seems like obsession." Chike seemed uncomfortable. He wanted to run away from the conversation, but he also felt like she was a safe place. He finally sighed, his voice low and filled with emotion. "It's my mother," he began, his gaze fixed on the ground. "When I was a child, she always struggled to make ends meet. We barely had enough to eat, and she constantly worried about money. It was a hard life. And she would often tell me, 'Chike, never waste money. Save every coin you earn, because you never know when you might need it.' And when she was ill, we did not have enough money to treat her. Ijeoma, she died because the money was not enough to treat her." Ijeoma felt pity in her heart and hugged him, allowing Chike to lean on her. "I'm sorry you had to go through all that," she said. "I know it makes you very uncomfortable," he confessed. "But just maybe if I had enough money, I can always save the people I love. But my dear, we are living miserably. And what if money can't save your loved one? At the end of the day, what happens to all the money you saved?" she responded to him. Chike thought deeply. He had never imagined a scenario like that. And just like a miracle, after a long period of silence, "You are right. I guess I felt stuck after I lost my mother. I promised you, my love, I would do better." Ijeoma smiled reassuringly. "We will take it one step at a time. We will see for the future, but we'll also make sure we enjoy the present. Life is meant to be lived, Chike, not just survived." Over the next few months, Ijeoma and Chike worked together to reshape their lives. Ijeoma continued to expand her bead-making business, bringing in a steady income that allowed her to buy small luxuries for their home. She was careful to make sure that every process was discussed with Chike, easing him into idea that it was okay to spend on things that brought comfort and joy. Chike, on the other hand, loosened up as he promised. After all, he was never really stingy. He was only scared for the future. He began to take better care of himself. He bought his wife what she needed and provided for his home in every way a man is required to. Their love blossomed, their relationship deepened, and they lived happily ever after. The moral lesson of this story is that it is unwise for anyone to build their financial fantasies on someone else's income. The Bible says in Proverbs 10 verse 4 that being lazy will make you poor and hard work will make you rich. Instead of viewing someone as your ticket to a better life, focus on working hard and building your own future. And with God's grace, we can all find success. Remember, there is dignity in hard work. Thank you for watching this story. If you enjoyed it, please like and share with your loved ones and let me know what you feel in the comments. I always enjoy hearing from you all. Until next time, bye.